Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Mike Friesen, and with us for our program today, Assemblyman Dean Murray. Dean Murray represents the 3rd Assembly District in New York State. The 3rd District includes parts of Suffolk County. We want to thank you folks all across Long Island for tuning in for our program today. Dean Murray, I remember very clearly your initial campaign and election to the State Assembly. You came in and you had, a certain number of things you thought New York State needed to do differently to change direction, taxing and spending, some of the basic stuff. But in particular, you said business. It needed to change its approach to the business community, and you said it's very obvious to you because you are in business. You're in small business, and you know about a relationship that you have with New York State, and it hasn't always been a very good one.
Right. I mean, the bottom line is we've been ranked as one of the most business unfriendly states in the entire nation year after year. Again, we're right there with New Jersey, again, fighting neck and neck for that dubious distinction. So we need to change our image. We need to do things differently and say, we're open for business. We welcome business. Because if businesses succeed here, that means we have jobs. That means the economy is succeeding. That means we recover. We need to help businesses succeed, not put up impediments and stand in the way. And too many times, that's what we've been doing. Now, this year, I think we made some very positive steps. I applaud the governor for coming up with the idea of the Regional Economic Development Councils. That's something that I had said we had needed, to focus more regionally on some of the economic development projects rather than taking a statewide approach. That was a good first step. But, then we turn around and we take steps backwards with other little things that, just add up a lot.
Give us some examples of how New York State is not business friendly. Again, you are a small business owner. What are some of the things that drive you crazy?
Well, I mean, obviously the taxes. I mean, that's we know about that, but also kind of the red tape. I mean, and it's on several levels, not just the state level, but several levels of government, where you have so much red tape, so many hoops you have to jump through, and we're not saying waive these checks and balances that keep things safe and make sure the businesses are doing it right. I mean, we have to have those checks and balances in place, but don't put all of these hoops they have to jump through in place that are unnecessary. Speed up the process. I know there's a gentleman in my district who was trying to open up a restaurant. Now, it was an old restaurant to begin with. He bought it or took it over, knocked down the old building. He literally had to leave a wall up. Because if he had knocked the whole thing down, it would have been a whole set of other permits and processes and all this which would have slowed him down. To begin with, it ended up taking him 3 years to get to the point, to get all the approvals and everything necessary to get to the point where he could actually really start moving on getting the restaurant open. That brings business to the area. That employs people. I mean, why do we want to stand in their way? But now we just got hit with something, and ironically, it was right after the governor did his tour across the state announcing the Regional Economic Development Councils. Right after he finishes, I, as a business owner, get a letter in the mail from the Department of Labor saying, guess what? You owe X amount of dollars. I said, well, what do I owe this for? And it was regarding unemployment insurance. Well, apparently, it's an unemployment interest assessment surcharge. Now, let me explain what that means.
Unemployment interest assessment surcharge, because I don't know what it means.
Okay, here's what happens. Federal government, they vote and they extend unemployment benefits for another 13 or 26 weeks or something. Well, they've done that, and we're in the middle of a recession. Unemployment's already high. When you have unemployment at over 9%, or in some areas 10%, when you have unemployment that high, and you extend the unemployment benefits to those who were unemployed before, you're jacking it up even higher. So there's more and more people now that need to receive these unemployment benefits. Unfortunately, it's too many people for the state's funds to cover. So we have to now borrow from the federal government's unemployment interest trust fund. This has happened for the last couple of years, and Congress has passed legislation that says we'll give you these loans interest-free. Great. Well, this year, guess what they didn't pass? There was no legislation saying it was interest-free. So this surcharge, we're paying $95 million of interest on a loan that me as a business owner and business owners all across the state didn't even have a say in taking. So we're actually paying, this surcharge is to pay the interest to the federal government on the loans that we took to cover unemployment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Wow. You talk about being business unfriendly. So not only are we now paying, and here was the Department of Labor's answer. They said, we get the bill of $95 million in interest from the federal government. Well, we're already charging businesses the max when it comes to their unemployment insurance. And believe me, I know that. So we're already being charged the max. So where are we going to come up with $95 million? We'll hit them with a temporary surcharge.
Interest assessment surcharge.
Exactly. And the kicker is, it's not even paying back the loan. This is interest that we're paying on the loan. $95 million of interest. Now, I immediately got a hold of and sent a letter to Governor Cuomo saying, listen, if Congress isn't going to take action, we need to take action on this. We should refund that money. We came up with about $800 million extra that we, above what we had projected in the first quarter of this year on tax receipts. Let's use some of that. Give the businesses a break here. This, again, the business had absolutely no say in taking this loan, but yet we're forced, and I mean we, by businesses in the state of New York, are forced to pay the interest on this.
I was thinking about the story you told about the fellow who had to leave the wall standing as he renovated the restaurant.
Right.
You hear all kinds of stories about people going into the restaurant business who have a hard time, or it takes a really long time to get an alcohol license.
Right.
You hear stories again about state agencies that go around to businesses, and it's like they're looking for stuff to lay down, rather than working with the business community to say, well, here's how you do things right. This is what would work to your advantage, and let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Right.
It's more like, oh no, look, you did that wrong, and I think that there'll be $1,000, $5,000 fine. Or you hear those stories all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, not every, and I don't want to put a black cloud on every state agency. There are some state agencies that do a very good job. I mean, you have things like the Empire State Development Corp that they work with businesses. They do help them. They will give advice. They work on them with getting grants and things of this nature to help the businesses. But then, on the other hand, you have, like you said, some of the enforcement aspects of it when they come and just nitpicking, looking for stuff, and hitting these businesses with these fines and things. It's just, we need to streamline the system. And I've said this again, and I'll stress it again. I'm not saying sacrifice safety or any kind of regulations that need to be followed. We're not saying that, but we are saying, stop putting up so many impediments. Stop slowing down the process of getting businesses up and operating. Because when they're up and operating, they're hiring people. We're putting people back to work, which then takes them off of unemployment, which relieves the burden on the taxpayer.
And I suppose one man's nitpick is another man's sense of something important. I mean, we do want to have clean restaurants.
Absolutely.
You do want to have safe workplaces, and you need to enforce those things.
Right. And in no way do we want to diminish that. But there comes a point where it gets a little over the top, and we need to stop that. But this interest assessment surcharge, sent a letter to Governor Cuomo saying if the feds aren't going to do it, let's us do it. But I also contacted Congressman Bishop's office and Senator Schumer, and I believe Senator Schumer is now putting in legislation calling for this loan to be interest-free again. So we're really crossing our fingers and hoping Congress gets back to work, passes this right away, and we can refund the money, because the money had to be sent in by August 15th. I know I had to send my check in, and the payment from the state has to be made by the end of September to the federal government.
So you're hoping that it's not just a moving forward thing. You're actually hoping businesses will be able to get back the money that they paid in.
I want them to get back the money right now, because that was another unfair assessment on business. And believe me, especially Long Island businesses and businesses in Suffolk County, we're well aware of unfair assessments. We were the ones hit 2 years ago with that MTA payroll tax, which, again, I still think is a job-killing, ridiculous tax that should be abolished. But this is another example of that, where we just turn to the business community again. And, when we're making these efforts and we're making these strides to make New York more business friendly and send the message out there that we want businesses to come here, things like this sets us back.
Right.
This puts us right back.
You talked about the economic development councils that the governor's been traveling around the state talking about. It's got to be better than a statewide approach, because I can't tell you how many issues there are, as we've discussed them on these programs, where you can't have one template that's going to be inclusive and all good
Right.
for New York City versus one that's good for the eastern end of Suffolk County versus one that's going to be good for some tiny little village up in the Adirondacks,
Right.
let's say, or out in the Finger Lakes. New York State is so diverse.
Absolutely.
It's not a one-size-fits-all state. Regional economic development initiatives or strategies, that seems to make sense.
Oh, this absolutely makes sense. I mean, I love the idea because, like you said, it's not a one-size-fits-all in the state of New York. We are so diverse. I also like the fact that the governor took the, it was going to be $100 million for this one, $100 million for this one, $100 million for this one. What he said now is, no, we're going to pull it together. It's $1 billion. Go compete for it. I like that. I like that approach because, that's similar to the business world, Go compete against each other and may the best one win. So we're going to come up with some good projects here. Now, the fear, of course, is, here comes the big fear.
Everything's going to go to Manhattan, maybe?
Exactly. That's the big fear. But
Yeah.
you know what? I don't think that's going to happen because I know, for example, on Long Island, we have some really good people involved in the Economic Development Councils, and I know we have some really good ideas out there, too. So I'm confident that we're gonna reap some benefit from this and put it towards real good fundamental projects that will help generate jobs and will help stimulate business. But we are going to keep our eye on it and make sure that it's all not, funneling right down into that little island of Manhattan there.
When the fellow at the table calls you over and he's got the deck of cards, you do want to inspect the deck of cards, don't you?
I think that's a pretty good idea. But like I said, I'm confident that we have some pretty strong players on our Economic Development Council in Long Island that will certainly fight for our fair share of it, and we'll be right there beside them. It's my pleasure to work with them, and I know we have other state lawmakers that also will be standing right there, keeping a close eye on this to make sure that we're going to get our fair share.
Well, how's this summer of 2011 been for Suffolk County?
Little rough.
Really?
Yeah, actually, while there was just an article that said that while other places are starting to gain some jobs, actually Suffolk County lost about 7,800 jobs.
And you think with the tourist industry and with,
Yeah, that's one of the disappointing things, to be quite honest with you, is Suffolk County, we rely heavily on the tourism industry. But again, when the economy is like this, a lot of staycations, we don't pull the people from Ohio and Pennsylvania and other states that might have just, taken a little longer drive, or maybe a little further in the Midwest that might have flown to New York to, check it out. But we're kind of not getting that now. So we have to, and that's something that we also have to sit down and take a smart approach as to how we're going to market New York State as well for tourism.
Mm-hmm. And then the agricultural component for Suffolk County, very important, should be stable, you would think, but that's another one of those areas where you look at how New York State handles or that kind of relationship that state government has with its farming community.
Yeah.
It's not a very friendly one there either.
And the funny, a lot of people don't realize this, that Suffolk County is the top, or one of the top agricultural counties in New York State.
Oh, I knew that.
You knew
well,
that.
I know, but I've been around here for a little bit. I've
There
heard
you
from
go.
people like this guy about how, you got the wine industry, you've got,
Yep.
I mean, all kinds of farms. But
Well, see,
people don't necessarily think of Long Island for farming.
True. Here's one thing I do want to tie in, and on a good note, is in talking to Senator Schumer's office, we are trying to get JetBlue to actually make Long Island MacArthur Airport, another hub in the Northeast.
That would be awesome.
Well, it would for a couple of reasons. First off, it's going to bring immediate jobs, but also it'll help. We can help promote the wine industry and the tourism right there in Suffolk County. So that can actually maybe again draw some people from out of state, bring new money in here, and generate some more tourism and help the wine industry as well.
An easier way to bring people in.
There you go.
That's as easy as that. We're out of time. If you folks watching want to know how to reach out to your representative in state government, you can reach Dean Murray at his office in Medford. Call 207-0073 or drop an email at the address you see right there on the bottom of the screen, murrayd@assembly.state.ny.us. Dean Murray, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike.
We hope to see you folks again in the near future for our next edition of Assembly Calendar.